Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berserker, this is Unshackled Fury.
Happy Brewfest, everybody, and welcome back to the show that never uses Synth Brew goggles, your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker. This is episode 97, and today we'll be talking more about patch 9.1.5 drama, the continued fallout of Activision Blizzard's indiscretions, and we'll finally get back to talking about the story of this game itself, where we ended up, and where we might be going. First, been up to a few things since last we were here. Continuing to raid with my team. We're making our way through Heroic in fine fashion. We're about a third of the way in, I think, on Heroic, and we're banging away on it. We've got quite a few kills under a belt. We're having a little trouble getting that remnant of Ner'zhul on a routine basis, doing a little ping pong dance there, but it's getting close. We're doing all right. So it's been a challenge, but we're having some fun because it is, like I said before, a damn good raid. Now outside of game, well, even bigger goings on. This past, what was it, Friday night? I record this on Sunday, so on Friday night, went to my first live concert in at least 2 years. I don't quite know when the last one was, but it was at least 2 years ago. And it was at a local venue here called Ace of Spades. Saw one of the all-time greatest heavy metal bands, Black Label Society, fronted by Zakk Wylde, who, if you don't know, he's one of the greatest guitar players of all time, like in the pantheon of rock gods, right? He was and still is Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist. Has been with him ever since Randy Rhoads died, 30 years ago. He's been around a long time. I got a chance, my buddy Rommel and I got a chance to get in on a meet and greet, and it was one of the coolest experiences of my entire life. They could not have been more cool, the band and Zach, and we got to take some photos. I posted this stuff on Twitter, so I'll hit at Berserker Rage if you don't follow me already. You can see all this nonsense. And had a great time having a brief little chat and getting to take some photos and screwing around. Because Rommel, my homie Rommel, is quite tall in the 6'6" neighborhood. And one of the members of Black Label Society is a bit on the shorter side, probably under 5'5" is my guess. We were trying to figure out exactly his height, but somewhere under 5'5". So having them back to back, and Zach thought it was hilarious, and he got down on the ground and was taking photos of those two, and it was pretty fun. And we got signed poster, which I've got up on my wall now. I've also posted that out on Twitter if you haven't seen that already. And if you haven't listened to the show long enough, you may not know that there is a connection between Zakk Wylde, Black Label Society, and the name that I have taken, my nom de plume, Berserker, because that's not the name on my birth certificate. Although hailing from Nevada originally, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But Berserker, the Berserkers or Berserker, whatever sort of spelling you want to give it, the Z, the Berserker with a Z in the middle, comes straight out of this band. So they called themselves Black Label Berserkers, that the fans were Berserkers. And sometimes they go back and forth, but a lot of times they use the Z. And so all those years ago, when I was originally getting into Warcraft, so long before a podcast, long before anything else, when I just was like, I gotta find a name for this human warrior. Like Berserker, I'm a Berserker. That's right. I didn't even know there was Berserker stance for warriors back then. It just fucking sounded cool. So I'm like, all right, that's what we're doing. So in the times when people are like, oh, it's the thing from Clerks, a Berserker. You know, that's not it. That's not it. That's hella funny. And don't get me wrong, I'm very nostalgic for that movie. But Berserker, the name Berserker comes from Black Label Society. So for me, to be able to connect with them personally, even if briefly, it was amazing. And I was really happy to finally get out and see a show, number one. Number two, to meet some folks that I have wanted to meet or have idolized for a long time. To actually, hug Zakk Wylde. I mean, just saying those words makes me like feel like I'm in a dream or something. But that's where that came from. So you may also see some things I posted on Twitter. I have a few walls in the room that I'm in currently, but this is sort of my den office room where I record my show, where I actually work, and it's kind of my, room of crap. I just have, Star Wars posters and lightsabers and signed Batman animation cells and diplomas, because I did actually go to school. But on one wall in particular, I have a lot of my Blizzard stuff. I posted the new Black Label Society, actually says Black Label Berserkers poster. And I also finally got around to properly framing and then hanging a couple of pieces that I have by Samwise Didier. One is the 30th anniversary Arthas concept art that they released some time ago. So I finally got a frame for that. And then next to it is a piece that I actually bought several years ago. I want to say 5, 6, 7 years ago maybe, when Samwise Didier had a website. I don't know if he still has it, but you could get signed art from him. So I got this piece of an Alliance soldier facing down this horde orc. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of it's like an inspirational piece for me, because a lot of times you feel like that, where you're the battlefield has been laid to waste and you're the last person standing and you've got this war to fight and it's all on you, but you, goddamn it, you're gonna take up arms, you're gonna get shit done. So having that by him, having that sign, so far it doesn't sound like Samwise has been a dirty birdie over there. Lord knows, God, something could come out and I gotta burn that shit. But right now, it looks great on the wall, and I'm happy to have it there. So if you haven't seen it, check out my Twitter at Berserker Rage, and you can see all that's going on there. Now, it's been a little while since we had a Rage segment, and my activities on Friday night have let's say, spurred an idea, a topic to talk about. And then at last minute, another item has jumped in. So another double rage coming your way. So let's get into it. Let's rage. So one of the things about going out right now, especially for myself, is that if I go to a venue that is large enough, there are enough people. The way that we have it set up, and listen, everybody's got their own way. The way that we have it set up for me and for my family is that, unfortunately, my family is a high-risk family. So I am currently in a precautionary quarantine as I record this. I will be stuck in this room for at least 4 or 5 more days. That is how we roll. Granted, other people do other things, and that, I'm not here to debate the merits of any of that. What I did see, though, having been locked in my house for the better part of a year and a half, finally getting to go out to a concert, the venue that we went to, Ace of Spades, they make it no secret as to what the requirements are to get in. You have to demonstrate to them. You have to show them that you have either vaccinations or that you have a negative test from the last 72 hours. And you have to wear a mask inside the venue unless you are actively eating or drinking. Again, not debating the merits of this, just stating it is very clear from the perspective of the venue what is required to get in and participate. Not only that, for a lot of folks, these are the first kind of rounds of shows that are coming around. So this has been probably the first opportunity for a lot of people to get out, not just me. And so what did I see? For the most part, people behaved. People did what they were supposed to do. People followed the guidelines, but that was not always true. And in a couple of instances, middle of the concert, I'm being made aware of the fact that one, some guy apparently punched out a security dude at the front because he was pissed about mask mandates. Two, while we were in the middle of the show, some dipshit. Now, if you've ever been to Ace of Spades in Sacramento, you'd know this. On one side of the wall, there's like seating, like bar stool type seating. They added these a few years ago, so you kind of like get to sit and watch the show. It's pretty cool. So somebody was sitting in one of those seats, and some guy looking for trouble comes and stands right in front of somebody that's right there, like at eye level, and is intentionally blocking this person. They don't know each other, as I found out later. They didn't know each other. But I think about people like this and the situation that we are in. And for the love of God, if you're going to a show, have the perspective that people are there to have a good time. People are probably getting their first chance in a long time. Don't be the guy or gal or whoever that's just going to be a dick and to cause trouble. Like, I'm not saying there's really a good time ever to go to a concert and be that guy that's like punching out security guards and intentionally causing fights with other people. But now in particular, it's really important. Just let people enjoy a show. Just let people enjoy a show. It's so needed, wanted, and rare right now. Don't be the one person that's like, you know what? I'm going to get all fucking greased up and ready to go and throwing fists. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. Just, you know, if you got a problem with mask mandates, do it somewhere else. If you're looking to start a fight, I don't know, go to the gym, put some gloves on, and find somebody. Like, this is not the time or place. Please, right now, let us all just recover piece by piece so we can get a little semblance of normalcy in our lives to go to a show. There is a mosh pit. You know, there was a pit circling at one point in that concert. You wanted to get busy? Jump in there. Those motherfuckers will bang you off the walls left and right. This is not the place to do it. So, folks, if you're heading out anywhere, if you're heading out to a show, if you're heading out to something that most people, you think, probably haven't been to too many in the last couple of years, just keep that in mind. Don't be the troublemaker. Go. Have a good time. I promise. It'll work out for you. Speaking of trouble, patch 9.1.5 drama. It continues. So let's talk about it. I forgot. One more mini rage. Apparently Coca-Cola, has a new ad campaign targeting gamers, and it is the worst fucking ad I've ever seen. And it's very clearly marketed at, you know, esports folks, because it's like esports teams playing some game that kind of looks like Warcraft. Like there's orcs and knights and stuff, and it's like they throw down their weapons. They're like, Coke brought us together. Like, oh my god, it is heinously terrible. I'm not sure which focus group they talked to about this or who the marketing guys are involved, but clearly they haven't watched a single second of anything in the last. This is like what my mom would think about something. So let's not ever do this again. Come on, Coke. I love Coke Zero. I drink you all the time. Don't do me like this. Anyway, on to our news. Patch 9.1.5. The kitchen sink, as I called it last time. Blizzard trying to make an attempt to right some wrongs, to get folks happy again. Well, there's been a slew of other changes that have popped up that have not exactly been met with open arms. And in the last week or so, we have seen several more of these that seem to have drawn people's ire. So, pulling up a couple of posts here. One of them in a recent note included that the kick, stink, shake, and moan emotes have been completely removed. The drool, cough, burp, fart, whistle, spit, and moon emotes will no longer address specific players when they're being targeted. The pounce and groan emotes have been changed, so now they're in reference to pain, and they can't be taken as such as like I'm moaning at you, like, oh, I'm moaning like, oh, I'm in pain. And they've added huzzah, magnificent, impressed, and winced, which huzzah, I think everybody loves huzzah. Who doesn't love huzzah? But this is more along the lines of the removal of the spit emote that we saw recently, and it's also along the lines of a lot of the broader changes that we've been hearing about and seeing in relation to negative player interaction. You know, the sort of harassment that we've always seen in game. It's been around for a very long time. Some of the other changes, I think, are the ones that are even, I guess, more explosive to people, is that there have been a couple of changes related to some art pieces in, it's in vanilla. And I can't even remember where they are, but there are a couple of scantily clad women, if you want to call that. One just shows cleavage. The other one's like a woman in a kind of a bikini deal on like a chaise lounge. And those have been changed. One of them into a bowl of fruit. Which, hey, listen, if that's your jam. The twin consorts in Throne of Thunder, they have been changed. They're now the twin Empyreans. And the big love rocket is now going to be the X-45 Heartbreaker. And so all of this kind of ties to, well, it ties to a number of things kind of generally going on, but it's the reason, the cause, the necessity of all of these changes that's really what's kicking up a lot of the fuss, so to speak. And before I really give my opinion on any of this, Blizzard put out a statement. So clearly a lot of discussion online, Reddit, everybody's making videos, other podcasts, whatever. So let's take a look at what Blizzard had to say, and hopefully this kind of sheds a light, if you haven't read this, about what's going on. And this is a little bit of a lengthy statement, but I do feel that it's worthy of reading in its entirety. So here we go. Over the last few weeks, artists and writers across the WoW team have updated a small number of old quests, art assets, names, and dialogue that we identified as outdated and inconsistent with our values as a team. These updates are a relatively small part of a comprehensive, company-wide effort to improve the WoW team and Blizzard as a whole, but they're important to us as developers. In early August, we set up internal channels where the WoW team could share feedback on content that doesn't represent who we are as a team today. During this time, we also gathered a great deal of feedback from players on practically every aspect of the game. The player feedback influenced many gameplay improvements we're working on for patch 9.1.5, and our internal feedback identified some in-game content that is inconsistent with our goal of building an inclusive and welcoming game world. In a game that has thousands of art elements and a word count in the millions, we recognize that these updates will amount to very few total changes overall. Nonetheless, we believe these changes are worthwhile. World of Warcraft is meant to evolve over time, and every day, new players from every walk of life and every corner of the world experience our in-game content for the very first time. As a team, we want the world they see to stand as an expression of our talents and principles. Goofy jokes and occasional mature innuendos are part of WoW, and probably always will be. Still, we want to remain mindful, of whether certain elements of that world are welcoming to all players. In short, we want our jokes to be inclusive and not punch down. Occasionally, when determining whether to adjust content, there can be circumstances that further complicate our decision-making. For example, Some of the art that populates our world is often reused throughout the game. To be certain that we don't have any instances in which this art appears in a way that is not respectful, in some cases, we might opt to replace specific elements entirely. It's important to us that we ensure Azeroth is the best place it can be for everyone, and we will continue to improve our processes when it comes to this kind of decision making. We also want players to be able to express themselves through their characters, so we don't intend to change existing player looks or cosmetics. Instead, we want to ensure that we're offering a wide range of options for players to represent themselves. This work is ongoing alongside our development of new content and features. You're going to see more of it soon in 9.1.5 and in updates to come, and where applicable, in WoW Classic as well. An example of a post 9.1.5 improvement is the creation of an Incubus Demon, which we can add to places where Succubus models currently appear. We're also planning to make the Incubus a glyphable option for Warlocks when they summon that classification of demon. As WoW continues to evolve and grow, we'll keep discussing, reviewing, and acting on this kind of feedback. As always, we're immeasurably grateful for your input, and we hope you keep it coming. From the World of Warcraft team. So, to me, that seems pretty clear. There's been a question about the need for some of these changes, and it's been argued back and forth whether it's necessary or not. But in reading this statement, it seems clear to me that from the developer standpoint, these changes are needed. I'm not really going to argue with that. I feel a certain connection to this game, a very strong connection, obviously. And there are a lot of things about the game that I like. None of that is being affected by these changes. Art assets, the names of a boss fight in a raid I haven't seen in like 8 years doesn't bother me. Changing of emotes, I can get that. You know, for a lot of younger players especially, and for I think folks who have typically been targeted by harassment, I could see how that's a meaningful change. I don't believe this has anything to do with public relations. I think saying that this is, oh, they did it for PR. I don't think so. If they did this for a PR thing, I think there would be a much splashier piece being put out about this. And there will be more of these changes. No doubt about this. As they continue to go through their process, it's clear that there has been an initiative, if you want to call it, being launched internally. That they are looking at this game to say to themselves, how do you feel about this game in all aspects? And are there things about it that would make you feel better as somebody working on this game? And I think about my work, the work that I do, the connection that I have to it. And if there and when there are things that I don't feel right about in that work, you're damn right I'm going to say something about it. I'm going to try to do whatever I can to make that feel right for me and for my team. So while we have this sort of outside connection to it, and it's very real, that doesn't preclude the things that need to happen from the inside from happening. I say let the devs decide. If they want to change some names, if they want to change some art, let it rip. Doesn't bother me. And I think that's part of the point, is that I'm not offended by this, but that doesn't mean that other people won't have a problem with it. And I think that that's the crux of some of these arguments, is that, well, this is dumb. Why would anybody change that? This is stupid. I don't care. You may not care, but other people might care. And if it doesn't change anything materially for you, but it does for somebody else, then why not? Yes, the big pink love rocket, listen, that is pretty funny. I always thought that was funny, right? And along those lines, they're changing a few other things, like in Black Temple, right? They're changing so there's going to be, not just these female concubines and those kinds of things in the Den of Mortal Delights. There's also going to be some gender neutral folks in there. Charming Patron, Temple Acolyte. They're changing a few other names. Sister of Pleasure will now be Priestess of Delight. Like, okay, cool. Priestess of Dementia will now be Mistress of Torment. Sure, why not? The Sons of Hodir quests, which were all very innuendo laden, like blowing Hodir's horn, mounting Hodir's helm, raising Hodir's spear, thrusting Hodir's spear, polishing the helm. I mean, come on. So, again, things I didn't have a problem with, but others might not, or may have a problem with. So they're changing them to like Hodir's Call, placing Hodir's helm, forging Hodir's spear, how to slay your dragon, a vicious cleaning. Not a problem. Others still changes being made reference to Afraziabi and Jesse McCree and some of these other people that have gotten tossed out, and the list goes on. Although Master Bader, I'm surprised that they took out Master Bader. That was a great one. Now it's Zhang Zia, I think. Forgive me, I'm sure that I butchered that wildly, but I'll miss that one. That was a pretty good one. But these things will continue to go on, like I said, and I think that there's room in this game to allow that without too much heartburn. I see people getting quite indignant about it, and well, this is if it could do it, they could do it anywhere. And, I mean, yeah, but this is not. You think about how fucking big this game is. These are not a majority of the game being changed. Kind of changes, right? This is not some giant, overwhelming, overarching thing where there are no more boobs. Like that is not what's happening, right? It's not that scale. These are more nuanced, more targeted, and I think that that's appropriate. I don't have any problem with that. So, as we move through this, keep an eye out. Try to keep the word woke held inside. I know it's hard for some. Oh, it's JW. Like, just hold on tight. It'll be okay. I promise. But as we make our way through it, we're gonna see these changes. The game is a living thing. It always has been. That's how it's worked. So we'll move on. It'll be just the next controversy will come to us. Like, remember when people were pissed about the portal rooms and what was going on in the portal rooms? No, you don't remember that because people just move the fuck on because that's what we do. We move on. We get on with our lives. Everything will be fine. But that's what's been going on with this patch 9.1.5. Lots of drama, lots of intrigue. So on one hand, no more consorts, but we will have covenant swapping. Ripcord happens. So, pick your poison. I see the same people cheering for one and complaining about another, and I guess somewhere if you're in the middle, I guess you're doing it right. You're giving a little bit and taking a little bit from everybody that wants it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll keep tabs on it, but overall, good changes. That's fine. If it makes folks happy at their job, let's do it. Because then we get more Warcraft. That's really what we want. So on that front, there have been some updates as the fallout continues over there at Blizzard with the activities that we've talked about now for the last several months. They had another high-profile exit, although it may not be as splashy as like the people that we know. Is the chief legal officer left Blizzard? She'd only been there about 3 years, but Claire Hart is her name, and she took off. And I can't imagine what it would have been like being chief legal officer of Blizzard during this time. And if you look at the timeline, basically her entire tenure was happening during their worst time, like during the time when they're getting investigated by God in the world. That was her tenure. So I can't say I blame that person for leaving. On the other side of that, Blizzard did make a couple of other hires. They hired a new chief people officer, which you've never heard of a chief people officer. It's kind of like I think it's a title that can be used for a few things, but my understanding is that this is somebody who sort of oversees HR, strategy, retention, recruitment, like that kind of the whole kit and caboodle. So that's Julie Hodges. Julie Hodges is the new chief people officer. And Sandeep, I want to say Dubey, maybe I'm making that too frank, Dubey, as chief commercial officer. So we've got a couple folks here. There's a statement here by Julie Hodges. I think it's in the right place here. I share the company's belief that a work environment should welcome all perspectives, experiences, and backgrounds. A workforce where everyone feels valued is critical to the success of our business, as is a trusting, engaging, and safe environment that encourages creativity and innovation, and in which all employees can thrive. It takes a collective effort to do this, and I'm looking forward to ensuring that we support the diversity of our talent to bring our people together and continue creating amazing entertainment. So, sounds good, but clearly in the midst of everything that's going on, they have a steep hill to climb. Speaking of, we recently were made aware that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, is investigating Activision Blizzard regarding improper disclosures of sexual misconduct and discrimination. So the SEC is like, hey, should have been a little bit more open about what's been going on. And they have subpoenaed Bobby Kotick himself, which I just absolutely fucking love. I can only imagine the army of lawyers that have been summoned for this one. But they are taking a look into Blizzard as well. So you add that on top of the Department of Fair Employment and Housing here in California that's investigating them. And I got one more here. We also became aware this past week that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission was also investigating Blizzard for the last 3 years. And Activision Blizzard has established in reaching an agreement with the EEOC an $18 million victim compensation fund. $18 million that the EEOC will be the body of oversight to determine who gets to claim some of that pot. I believe that the maximum amount is like $300,000 that somebody can get out of that. So you're looking, you're looking at 100 claimants, I think, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe a little less. But that's a big deal. $18 million. And I think we're going to start seeing more out of that. Now, what happens, who's involved, what people are allowed to say, that's kind of the fine details. But it is another sign as things move forward that this isn't over. Because there's still more investigation that's going to happen in all of these regards. In response to this, let's see here. Let's see. The agreement is still needs to be approved by a court. And here are some of the other measures that are going into place as part of this agreement. The company will upgrade policies, practices, and training to prevent and eliminate harassment and discrimination in the workplace, including implementing an expanded performance review system with a new equal opportunity focus. The company will engage a neutral third-party equal employment opportunity consultant, a non-employee who must be approved by the EEOC. Again, the EEOC being the final arbiter on this, who will provide ongoing oversight of the company's compliance with the agreement. This independent consultant's findings will be reported directly to the EEOC and ActiveBlizz's board of directors. The company will hire an internal equal employment opportunity coordinator with relevant experience in gender discrimination, harassment, and related retaliation to assist the company and the neutral third-party EEO consultant with implementation of the agreement's requirements. So these look like good safeguards to make sure we don't get into a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, there was this agreement and everybody forgets about it, or just the horses are out of the barn and nobody knows what the fuck is going on. These are good safeguards to ensure that people without vested interests in Blizzard's financial situation, right? That's the problem here, is that there's too often the case where we find out that there's some kind of a tie or previous history between Activision Blizzard and other parties that are being brought in. Now it looks like what we have, hopefully, is an opportunity for these neutral parties, third parties, to be not connected to the EEOC, so not necessarily invested in their success. Blizzard, not necessarily invested in their success either. It's ensuring that this agreement, as it stands, is being enforced and that the employees are being served, or ex-employees, as may be the case in some instances. That is fantastic, because here's where we stand currently in terms of previous items that we talked about. So we've talked about a better Activision Blizzard King, a better ABK. If you're not following them on Twitter, please do get the latest updates from the employee side of this to see what's been going on, which at this point is not enough. Activision Blizzard still has not responded to the employees' demands that we've discussed and that they have long issued, reiterated. Bungie, who makes Destiny, they recently put something out about how they had ended, I believe, the arbitration clause in their contracts. Something that the ABK folks have asked for. Activision Blizzard stock, something that I've followed on this show for quite some time, has dropped pretty good since all of this came to light. If you remember back in February of this year, I think is about when they topped out at $103 per share. That's down to $78 a share. Currently, it was down to 73 about 2 weeks ago or so, a little bit after this last episode dropped. So there's progress being made, but there's still more to go, and I think that that's likely to be something that is said on the regular around here. But at least there was some settlement happening where people are being made whole, and that's a tough one, because how do you as a person who's experienced the things that people have experienced here, how do you get to a point where you're like, all right, this is the amount of money that I'll settle with and feel good about whatever, right? As somebody myself who's been in a pretty serious situation where I had to be compensated for the accident that I was in, right? That's left me with, lifelong, pretty significant lifelong problems. What do you ask for? Like, how much is your life worth? It's a question that pops up for a lot of people at different times. But at least in this instance, there's some movement there. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. As many folks are, and we'll opine and do what we got to do here on this show. But that's where we are for now. And with all of that said, it's been July, August, September, October. I mean, it's been almost 3 months since we've talked about story, the actual game, the actual story of this game on this show. So I think now's a good time. Now's a good time for a refresher. And specifically, I want to talk about where we are after the Sanctum of Domination raid happens. So last time I talked about story, went through the end cinematic there where we saw what happened. That the jailer Zaval, he gets that last sigil. He opens up that portal. We believe it's to the Sepulchre. Takes Anduin with him. And boom, he's out. Sylvanas appears to have her soul back. We have her somewhere. It sounds like she's being guarded by Bolvar's boys over at the Knights of the Ebon Blade. So who knows what's going on there. But But it's kind of where we stood. And so we continued to go through our Covenant campaigns, and I'll probably talk more about those later, with the Kyrian being the one that I've done so far. Was amazing. Spending more time with Uther, who, major character throughout the history of Warcraft, getting a chance to spend more time with him. That's been fantastic. But ultimately, we continue to play through that Covenant campaign, and we get to essentially where we are at the end. And one of the things that we got to see was, if you recall, in the Sanctum of Domination cinematic, that Anduin dropped that compass. The compass that Varian had in the Legion cinematic. We all remember that. And we thought it had some purpose to it. And it did. Because within this compass, it was there was a memory. There was a memory that was like grafted into it or projected into it or something like that. And it allowed us to see this memory of Anduin's, where he essentially is talking about how he's fading away. And it's something that I have kind of wondered about in terms of his fate. Does he become diminished to a point? Because I still believe that he's up to something, where there's a plan here. He's fighting this. He's believing in his faith in the light, that somehow that's going to pull him through. But it's clearly, whatever's happening is clearly taking its toll, where every time he's dominated, essentially, he is diminished. And Anduin confronts Sylvanas in this memory and asks if that was what it was like when Arthas had taken her soul and transformed her back when that happened all those years ago in his original campaign there in Warcraft 3. And she does admit that is what it is like, but it's all going to be worth it. It's all going to be worth it. And what's really impactful about this scene, I believe, is what's at the end. When Anduin tells her that no matter what happens here, it's probably too late for both of them. And that he wants to be remembered for who he was and not what he was turned into. Pretty gut-wrenching for me, because I still believe that we're going to save Anduin. And if we don't, to lose Anduin and Varian, well, my very heavy alliance-sided self is going to be very torn about what we do at that point. But it was a great scene, I think, for us to see as players, to again get more insight into what's been happening, sort of the dire nature of where we are with Anduin, like what is his state of being at this point, because we know he's been dominated, but we don't know like how much he can break through. We saw in that cinematic where he broke in to stab the Archon, that there's a piece of, like, he can kind of wake up, but how much of that power is still in there? Well, it looks like it's waning. So as we get closer to 9.2, hopefully we'll get some indication as to whether or not just if we can stop whatever it is that Zovaal is trying to do, what the jailer is trying to do, who we also learned he was the original arbiter, right? So he got banished from his job and installed this other thing, this other person, this other being to take his spot, which I can see why he'd be mad. Look at that great armor he got when he got his sigil back. I'd be pretty mad if I had that sweet transmog and they took it away. No, don't do that. But it leaves us with this sense of urgency, which I think still helps to propel this story forward. So that's where we stand with all that. We knew that before. And as we find out, that little tidbit, one of the other really cool things is that there are these other conversations that occur or that we are sort of witness to with some pretty major characters that we have left. The best of which was Jaina and Uther. Because when they meet in Korthia, that's the first time that they've seen each other since the culling of Stratholme. So think about all that has happened, right, with these characters, with our in-game world, between those events. That was pretty heavy. And I really enjoyed it. It was, that recognition. Jaina sees, oh, you're a Kyrian. Yes, that makes sense. And talks about how you have a choice. And you can choose. What do you bring with you? What do you leave behind? And so they have their conversation, and it really gets me to thinking about that dangling thread of Arthas that remains out there. It's impossible to ignore, and I feel like it's intentional in terms of his arc, Uther's arc, where he threw Arthas' soul into the maw. And now are we in a situation where is that soul to be redeemed? Is Uther going to do something along those lines? But really awesome lore moment to see the two of them talk, as well as Draka and Thrall. That was another conversation where they have a conversation about Garrosh, because that's really been Thrall's weight to carry. Is a lot of so much of what has happened in sort of the modern Warcraft era has been his decision and what's happened with Garrosh. So to see the two of them have a conversation, and basically Draka giving the mother's advice of, listen, that dude made his decisions. That's not on you. And you offered him an opportunity and he fucked it up. That's not on you. That's on him. More to deal with, but it was a nice connection there. The Mograines, seeing the Mograines have a chat, Alexandros and Darian. Complicated history there, and Four Horsemen and all of that. Tyrion and Ashbringer, and so they have conversations, or they have a conversation about that. I like that it gets called out that they tried to raise Tyrion for the Four Horsemen. And that was still a great moment if you've never played through the class hall and getting a chance to do that and going down into Light's Hope Chapel and causing a scene. That was pretty great. Another consequential one being Shandris and Tyrande. One of the things that we think we may have learned is that the burning of Teldrassil may have been allowed on purpose in order to feed souls to Ardenweald. And that's pretty fucking crazy. Because the question is why didn't Elune intervene? And it seems like there's some understanding in this conversation that they were trying to save Ardenweald by funneling more souls into it. And that's why the burning of Teldrassil was allowed to happen, which to me, it's fucking crazy. It makes sense, but it's wild. So, we've gone through the whole Night Warrior thing with Tyrande, and she seems to be kind of leveling out here. We've had a coming to terms with all of the covenants at this point. They're all working together. They're all on the same page, more or less, which is why we're now going to be able to freely swap with them, right, from a lore perspective. So everybody's on this united front. We have urgency because of Anduin. We have urgency because of the jailer, Zoval, going into the sepulcher and getting whatever first one's knowledge to remake reality or whatever it is that we're doing. On kind of a side note here, there was a really good analysis by Taliesin over at Taliesin and Evitel, and he talks about patch 9.2 and 9.3 and how there's not going to be a 9.3, how the timing works out, what that looks like, but also that we're likely not going to miss a whole lot because what was probably originally planned for 9.3 is what we're going to get in 9.2, and 9.1 is kind of a mishmash here of what to expect. So looking down the road, I thought that was pretty insightful. There's some pretty insightful commentary that's going on in there. So if you get a chance, check that out. But the question remains: what are we gonna do? 9.2 when it comes. Where are we gonna go? It seems likely that we're gonna go to wherever this realm is, where the sepulcher is. Probably have some crazy looking raid there. But what from there? How do we, I assume at some point there's some, it's like a dragon soul thing, and we use some kind of an artifact or a sigil or something to save Anduin, to drive the Zoval's influence out of his body. Some beacon of the light to bring him back. But Zoval, and what happens to him, and what doors are open because of this, us going now into this, I guess, forbidden place to gain this knowledge, because once we get there, it's not like we can unsee what we have seen. So what do we expect? Well, I expect that we go in there. I expect that we learn things. We find out more about who these first ones are. Maybe they intervene. Maybe that's the bridge, right, that gets us to the next crazy place that we're going. Or maybe we wrap it up here. And maybe something's happening back on Azeroth. Maybe we got to go back home. Because as Nav always talked about, there's a big fucking sword still stuck in it, although I guess maybe that's just a permanent piece of adornment like an earring. It's Azeroth's, instead of getting a bar through you got a big giant sword through your Silithus. A lot of people seem to like that idea that we're going to go back to Azeroth to reclaim it somehow, to just save it somehow. There's going to be some resetting of something. 9.2 offers a lot of possibilities. Hopefully we'll find out in the next couple of months. Here we are now in October. 9.1.5 I assume is coming, within the next 45 days would be kind of my guess. So that puts us March maybe for 9.2. Well, April for 9.2, which that puts us in a drought for quite some time for content, and we'll continue to monitor that situation as it comes. But story-wise, we're a united front, and we're about to charge into a place we don't know. Something we've seen so many times here, but the cosmic possibilities here are endless, and I'm excited to see what happens. And if we still end up having this BlizzCon line part 2 next year in February, whenever we're going to do it, that could be the time. 9.2, next expansion announcement. Big things coming, and I hope they're good, and I hope they do it right. I think they're going to get a lot of forgiveness right now for doing the right things if they take a little bit more time. So we'll keep an eye on it. We'll hope for the best, and hopefully at the end of the day we get something that we all love and enjoy, and people are in a place that they need to and want to be in. So, all right. Well, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at Berserker Rage and Unshackled_Fury. And you can join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of this show on Twitter and the Warcraft Radio directory page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise by going to unshackledfury.com. And you can find the show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high. We'll see you next time. Farewell.